Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of A Wild Mystery Podcast Appears, where we discuss mysteries, histories, and occasionally conspiracies. I'm your host, Belle.
And I'm your co-host, Solly.
Today, we are reviewing the Nazca Lines in Peru.
Today, we don't really have any content warnings, so it should be good.
Yeah, but if we think of something, we'll leave space for editing and give them to you now.
Yeah.
So, now, if you have ever seen the fourth and final movie of a certain series regarding an archaeologist adventurer, then you might have some idea about the Nazca Lines, where they are, and what they look like. Did you finally get it? Did it click?
It clicked pretty much as soon as you were like, the final series, the final whatever of, I was like, is it? And then you said...
the archaeologist.
Yeah, and I was like, yes.
Like, yep. Because I'm like, I don't know how that works with podcasts. It's like, if you name drop something, I'm like,
I think it's probably fine. I mean,
Yeah.
I've listened to the McElroys, and they've never gotten in trouble for, like, actually singing one week.
Yeah. Anyway, so the way we do.
1 week since you left me.
Huh?
It's a good song. Listen. This is
Um,
our first time recording in person since I got better from COVID, so hey.
Yeah, so we're enjoying hanging out for the first time. So this one's probably going to be a little giggly.
This is fine, though.
Yep. So the Nazca Lines are in Peru, are geoglyphs that you can only see the full image from the sky. Most of the lines have been dated.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have problems in this episode, but it's fine.
Why?
Just like all the conspiracy theories about these. We'll get into it, I'm sure.
Yeah. So they are most have been dated as being constructed more than 2,000 years ago by the Nazca culture, which was around 200 to 600 BCE. However, some predate the Nazca culture and are presumed to have been made by the Paracas culture. And the petroglyphs made by them, the Paracas, are more human-like and resemble other glyphs that predate even the Paracas.
Cool.
So they've been around for a while. Now, most of the glyphs are plants and animals, and one of the most common images shared is the monkey, which is measured out to be about 360 feet long, which is the exact length of a football field.
What?
And we are really showing our Americanness with that one because it's the one thing that I'm like, okay, relatory. That makes sense.
Okay, I've seen one.
Right?
I've seen one of those.
I was just thinking back, I'm like, how many high schools really do have football fields?
Too many.
Too many. I'm like, focus on the arts, y'all.
Focus on the arts and not letting your football players get away with
everything.
Murder.
And
anything.
Mm-hmm. Now there's another image that depicts. There's another image that depicts a bird that is 935 feet long.
Shit, my dude.
That's massive. Now, in total, there are over 800 straight lines, some reaching a length of 30 miles. 300 geometric figures, such as triangles, rectangles, spirals, arrows, and zigzags. And 70 animals in plant designs, also known as biomorphs.
Can you imagine, like, before people knew that these were here, just, like, coming upon a straight line and being like, what the fuck? like,
what is this?
Do you move the rocks? What are they made of? Rocks? No.
Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
So, and I do kind of get into how they are made. I'm not gonna lie, y'all, this is gonna kind of be a short one. I don't really want to get too much into the whole, like, it's a conspiracy, y'all. So, the glyphs were, when I was doing my research on this, and I'm going to get into this very briefly because this annoys the hell out of me, is they're like, they were originally discovered. No. So I said, the glyphs were originally rediscovered and were documented in the 1920s. Rediscovering America. An American historian named Paul Kosuk saw the lines from a plane in 1941 and hypothesized that the reason for the glyphs was for astronomical purposes, like how the pyramids in Stonehenge mimic solar, lunar, and star patterns. However, this was later disproved by Gerald Hawkins in
How?
1967. It was a lot of like, so basically he stuttered. He stuttered. He might have stuttered. I don't know. I stutter apparently today. He's basically like surveyed the whole area, and he surveyed like the night sky, and basically couldn't come up with any like correlation. Basically,
Okay, but
Paul, I do have an opinion on this as well. Paul, like, he literally thought that one of them resembled something.
okay.
One of them correlated with a thing.
Okay. I'm sure we'll get into the possible reasons. So I'll wait
Yeah,
to share
I mean,
my.
well, no, because here's the thing. I think I know where you're going with this. I'm going to repeat that because chair squeak. I think I know where you're going with this, because there's no way to say that it's not astronomical, because
Yeah.
stars die all the
Stars
time.
move. Like,
yes. So there's no
and
way to tell from from
potential
200 to 600 BC,
yeah.
even before then, what the sky looked like.
And in addition to that, how do we know that all of these different things had the same purpose? Especially if they were done by different cultures.
Exactly. So it's just, it is what it is. And so I do have a very strong opinion on that as well. I think making a general assumption off the
Forget.
that's fine. I think making a general assumption based off the current star pattern, which obviously in 1947 the light pollution, or excuse me, in 1967 the light pollution wasn't as severe as it is today.
Yeah.
But even still, stars die, new stars show up, shit changes. So there's really no good way to say if it was 100% accurate or not. Later in 1997, an international team of archaeologists, geographers, and archaeometrists and others formed the Nazca Pulpa project in order to document and analyze the Nazca Lines and a number of similar figures near the town of Pulpa. The conjecture of this group is that the platforms present at one end of many of the images reveal their ceremonial processional nature. This evidence, together with the presence in one excavated platform of a thorny oyster known as a spondylus,
Fragments of that thing.
Yeah. Suggests water-related religious ceremonies. Not unlikely, since it's a desert region that these are located.
Like, so many of the conspiracy theories are like, who would they have made these for? Because they couldn't like have seen them, and I'm like,
it's like you're
it's
also
right
looking
there.
at something from from this long of a time frame. Look how much landscapes change just within our own lifespan.
Yeah.
Not only just covering 500 years, how much it changed. It's the logic.
Yeah.
So,
there's also
yeah.
I minored in art history in college, so there's always a certain part of me that I feel a certain type of way of people taking the achievements of ancient cultures and attributing, like, saying we couldn't possibly have done that, it must have been aliens.
Aliens.
Like, there's always a certain part of me that's just like, why can't we just be amazed by the ingenuity of ancient cultures, you know?
Well, so you're gonna love my next couple sentences then. I joke about it. So at the end of the day, what makes these ancient drawings so interesting? Well, to put it simply, they're ginormous drawings that you can't fully perceive from the ground. So if this ancient art couldn't be perceived from the ground, then why make the drawings? Was it to worship ancient gods or to honor them? Was it aliens? Or did they do it just because they could and wanted a challenge? More recent research suggests that the Nazca Lines' purpose was related to water, a valuable resource in the arid lands of the Peruvian coastal plain. Now, these geoglyphs weren't used as an irrigation system or as a guide to find water, but rather as a part of a ritual to the gods in an effort to bring much needed rain. Which, to me, this is pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
Most ancient cultures do have
rituals
gods
surrounding
that
rain
they worship,
yeah,
and to help bring rain.
And generally weather
Yeah.
of whatever
Yeah.
proclivity.
Whatever weather that they don't have.
Yeah.
As frequently. Now, some scholars point to the animal depictions, some of which are symbols for rain, water, or fertility, and have been found at other ancient Peruvian sites and on pottery as evidence of this theory.
See, I like this even more because it's not like this seems okay. So there's this, I don't want to call it a bias or something like that, but there is a tendency when we look at ancient art and stuff to assume
To
that,
automatically jump to like the alien theory.
well, not that, but like, I mean that too, but for historians basically to be like, this has something to do with death.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you think about it, a lot of the things that do survive are gravestones and that kind of thing. And that's not the only thing that is part of a culture. It's just the things that tend to last the longest.
Yes, absolutely.
So when historians have basically like come to a consensus on something that does not involve like a cultural theory that does not involve a cultural fascination with death, I'm more inclined to be like, yeah,
that's reasonable.
Which, I mean, even if it does have something to do with death, if most historians are saying it and it's not blatantly obvious, like, oh, Michelangelo was totally a straight dude and that guy that he wrote poems about was absolutely just a friend, like,
Bow, chicka, bow, wow.
like, you know, stuff like that.
That's going to come off really interesting on that tape.
Oh boy, yeah.
But whatever.
There's decent evidence to back this theory up. And I think,
absolutely. Absolutely. And I completely agree with you where it's, so much of it does relate to, most historians relate it back to death. And it's, like one thing that kind of bugs me, and I think we might have gotten into the Screaming Mummy episode that we did.
Almost certainly.
But specifically like referring to ancient practices like hairdressers in Egypt. Like in ancient Egypt, they use this like weaving style for like this tool, and historians like had no idea what it was, but then they went to someone in that trade and was like, oh, do something with this.
I've heard of this.
And then they figured, and then like they did it, or like old blacksmithing tools, they took it to a blacksmith, he was like, oh yeah, blah blah blah,
for things for creasing paper. I've heard of that too. Do you need to
no
okay,
I just man spread. It's fine. I like to take up as much room as physically possible.
Well, because I'm like way up close to the desk and you're like way back there, so I was like, yes.
I think part of it too is I project too much. Okay. So this is, I think, my way of trying to balance out our audios, because I know I talk a lot louder.
It'd be hilarious if you kept this in, but I'll leave that up to you.
I'll decide when I go to edit, which is very much how I do it. I'm like, because I'll be like, oh yeah, that's so funny, I'm keeping that in, and I'm like, maybe not.
Yeah.
But it's just, and I like when historians like take outside input, and they actually go to people who work in that currently, and they're like, oh yeah, no, it's like some stuff carries down. Yeah. Tricks of the trade carry down through families, through trades, like.
Or at the very least, if you're in a trade, you can probably look at something and be like, that would be really good to use for X.
Oh, absolutely.
And then if you
especially when you're a master of your craft.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
And I'm sure that there are tests you can do. I know that there are ways you can do this on like ancient teeth to be like, oh, this kind of tool is used on this. And then if you find a tool that is very similar to that, you can be like, oh, this was probably.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. It's just, I don't know. I think anything to do with like history and trying to figure out what happened, when it happened, and stuff of the like, it's fascinating.
Did I ever tell you I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was a kid? Like, that was my thing. I could spell it. Which is amazing, but
no, I don't think you ever told me that.
No, it was a paleontologist actually, but
I think everybody.
But then it was archaeologist.
Hold on, I think everybody kind of wanted to be a paleontologist, especially after Jurassic Park came out.
Yeah, okay.
Right?
But this was like when all my classmates were like saying they wanted to be princesses or whatever. I was like,
I want to be a paleontologist.
Yeah. I was that kid.
I can see little Ollie doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that, because there was a time too where I definitely had a little bit of an archaeology thing.
Yeah, I have a fucking,
and
I don't
look
know
at us now
somewhere. I have a little fossil breaking rock or hammer somewhere.
Cute.
Yeah.
Continuing on
Yeah.
after that complete derailment. In 2015, researchers presenting at the 80th annual meeting of the Society for American Archaeology argued that the purpose of the Nazca Lines changed over time. Initially, pilgrims headed to the Peruvian temple complexes used the geoglyphs as ritual processional routes. Later groups, as part of the religious rite, smashed ceramic pots on the ground at the point of the intersection between the lines.
Okay.
So I do like that they're like, yeah, it probably changed over time as different cultures.
Cultures are fluid.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm gonna move my chair. This might be loud. Okay.
So how are they made? The desert floor is covered in a layer of iron oxide coated pebbles of a deep rust color. Their designs were created by removing the top 12 to 15 inches of rock, revealing the lighter colored sand below.
Mm-hmm.
They likely began with small scale models and carefully increased the model's proportions to create large designs. Can you imagine starting on a geoglyph and it like not working out in your favor? And like
I would
you
be
wouldn't
so
even,
annoyed.
but you wouldn't even know it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like it could be because like the coolest thing to me about the Nazca Land, I can't talk, and that's fine. But like specifically with the Nazca Lines, it's like how, for the most part, how organized and how like clean they are.
Yeah.
I mean, don't get me wrong. So that's the monkey that I was talking about.
This one?
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
It's like for the most part, that's actually not bad.
Like
that one's a little messier.
You can tell
But
in
then look
some
at
of
this
them
shit.
that they couldn't really tell, but yeah.
Look at that.
I mean, damn.
How are those so straight? Don't.
Aliens.
No, so hold on. Scroll all the way up. That one. Like, is that not
That's
just
really
like
cool.
fascinating?
I like this lizard guy.
Right?
I like this one. What the fuck is he? We'll post this picture.
Right?
So that you guys can know what we're talking about.
And then look at the spider. Like, the spider's on my favorite. And like, it's pretty like parallel.
Yeah.
Not parallel. Symmetrical.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just
he's
really...
got a foot on this end.
Look up Nazca Lines astronaut.
Oh, I've seen this one.
Yeah, right?
I've watched too many conspiracy videos.
I don't know. And to me, it's like, that's not that weird.
I can't draw
with
a boner.
He does look like he has an erection.
Yeah.
But to me, that's like not that awkward. Like, can you imagine
like
trying to... He does look like Squidward.
It's just like, okay.
My thoughts on this are, I can't fucking draw people. So...
And I mean, they weren't even looking.
Right.
So, I mean, there's... So in art history, you go from like... At the very beginnings of art, you start from like people starting to make art, and it's more symbols than going for realism, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like they look like logos is probably the best way to, like, when I say symbolic in this sense, it is not that their art, like, it was a symbol that had a connection to a specific god or something. I mean, like, they're not going for realism.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then as you get further into history and we start to understand how to do things like perspective and all of that, the symbolism gets more complicated, and then we get more into realism, especially when you hit like the Renaissance period.
Right.
And it's like way back at this point in time, this was just what art looked like.
Yeah.
You know, they're not doing something weird for the time. This is just what it was.
Yeah.
And they didn't, especially for, again, not being able to see what they were doing. This is pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, it's very impressive.
And the spiral, my dude.
I thought we were just supposed... Oh, yeah. That's so funny. I just got to that picture, but it's from kind of a different angle.
Yeah.
We're just now just scrolling through, because it's just like, it's just really cool to look at. It's just really interesting. Like, look at this bird. Look at that bird. Look at it. Look at it.
The only reason I didn't go into art history, I actually did switch to it as my major for a little while, but I decided I couldn't publish as much as they wanted me to, or as much as I would have had to when,
do that.
you know, with whatever career I would have ended up with in
Mm-hmm.
that profession, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But this kind of stuff is just very, very, very interesting. And I really like the older, very symbolic artwork, especially the like Egyptian kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Because it's like
The,
they're doing what they can with what they have.
yeah, Greek pottery, that kind of stuff. It's
Yeah.
all very, all the like cave paintings and that kind of thing, they're all very, very, very interesting.
And because 9
Oh,
times out of 10, it is what it is.
I want to go to Iraq and Iran so badly. But as an American, I'm not going to be able to do that. but the art of Iraq and Iran are fucking gorgeous.
It's very stunning.
Yes.
Again, complete derailment.
Yeah.
We're not. Look, like we said at the start of this, we haven't seen each other in a month.
Oh yeah, it's been.
Well, okay,
I actually
in
might
this
be a little
capacity,
over. Yeah.
because we
Oh no,
hung
right,
out.
yeah.
We hung out at
Because
work.
we've hung out at work. Yeah. I forgot
But
that was after COVID because my timeline of my own life is like all messed up right
like
now.
hanging out at lunch versus sustained hanging out for a couple of hours and then being able to just like, because it's not like we go into
Yeah.
this at work, because it's not, we're not saying that you guys are a dirty little secret, but
it's like, I don't know, talking to people that, I mean, at work, I don't know them very well yet anyway.
Yeah.
And it feels weird to like pimp out that I have a podcast to
Dude,
people, you know what I mean?
anybody that I've talked to about it, who's like, you know, friends at work who I've like gotten really close with over the past couple of years, because nothing will create a bond between people like living through the hell of COVID
crisis,
together.
Yeah.
So
I like this dude. It looks like a pregnant axolotl.
It does. It's a very accurate description.
Or axolotl, because apparently that's how it's pronounced in Mexico. I don't speak Spanish.
What was it? Do you have it?
Axolotl? Wait, this guy? Yeah, I have no idea. This is described as the astronaut. It's not.
Girl.
But
yeah, that's not. That actually looks more just like someone's drawing.
Yeah, it could have been.
Most of the known geoglyphs were formed by removing rocks from only the border of the figures, creating a kind of outline, while others were formed by removing rocks from the interior. And we do have some recent updates. In 2011, a team from Japan discovered a new geoglyph that appears to represent a scene of decapitation, which is only 13 feet long and 10 feet wide, so it's actually really small.
Yeah, it's pretty small. This guy looks like a dinosaur. You see it? This one looks like a whale.
Yeah, which is so funny, because when I was reading, it's like, oh, it's a killer whale, and I'm like, why are you so specific on like that's a killer
actually
whale?
I did think it looked like an orca.
It does.
It does, yeah.
But it's like,
but could they have seen an orca? I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, that's why I was like, specifically a killer whale seems a little too specific.
Yeah. They're probably just
this
going
region
for a whale.
potentially seeing it, you know?
Yeah.
So so the decapitation scene is 13 feet long and 10 feet wide, and it is significantly smaller than other Nazca figures and not easily seen from aerial surveys. Now, the Nazca were known to collect trophy heads, and research in 2009 revealed that the majority of the trophy skulls came from the same populations as the people they were buried with, as opposed to outside cultures. And in 2016, the same team found another geoglyph, this time one that depicts a 98-foot long mythical creature that has many legs and spotted markings and is sticking out its tongue. And in 2018, Peruvian archaeologists announced that they had discovered more than 50 new geoglyphs in the region, using drones to map the landmarks in unprecedented detail.
I think I like this one the best, the heron. God, that looks so neat.
It's just really fascinating to me.
This must have been one of the later ones.
Yeah.
But, I mean, again, they couldn't have known that they were getting better at this. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Because, like, it can't exactly go up somewhere and be like, oh, hey, that looks okay. You need to move 10 feet to the left.
Because even if they climbed up on a mountain, which I don't know how many mountains were in this area.
It's a flat desert region.
Yeah.
So So, discussion time. So, I mean, I didn't obviously in this episode I wanted to kind of more just go, "Hey, these are a really cool feature, and this is how they were made." I didn't really want to get into the whole like I didn't personally want to get into the physical like description of all the conspiracy theories regarding them because
I cannot get into this kind of stuff without bringing it up because it annoys me so much.
oh no, and that's why I knew we would talk about it. I
Yeah.
just didn't really want to get into like the writing it out aspects because it's just like,
Yeah.
look,
I don't want, like,
you've seen Indiana Jones, you know what's up. That's basically all the conspiracy theories rolled into one.
mhm. Well, like, as a like, I can enjoy Indiana Jones because I know it's a work of fiction.
Yeah,
It's when people, like, are actually like, "How could the people have built this, without the help of aliens?" Without, they didn't have the technology, but, like, just because they didn't have computers or cars does not mean that they didn't have other ways of doing shit. Like, it
exactly.
doesn't mean that they weren't intelligent.
No,
It doesn't mean that they couldn't have done art. Like,
no, and it's like, and the misconception a lot of times now is that ancient peoples were not smart.
mhm.
They were absolutely
I
smart.
mean,
They
they
were
were.
smart in their own ways for the time. We are ever getting smarter
Mhm.
as evolution requires.
Yeah. Our way, like, somebody being able to read really, really well and that kind of thing, like, our
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 definition of
definition of
intelligence.
intelligence. Yeah.
Fucking stop.
We have a psychic link. Our definition of intelligence has changed as art has progressed,
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
because,
Well, because like so many things I try and link it to um
like, okay, so let's talk about IQ tests, for example.
I
So if
have
you're
opinions.
yeah, if you are taking an IQ test, they will ask you what certain vehicles are used for. If you are from a village where you don't use those kinds of vehicles, which we have a few of those in Alaska,
Mhm.
you might not be able to answer that correctly, and that might drive your IQ down. Just
Yeah.
because you don't know what a vehicle is used for does not mean you are not an intelligent person.
Yeah.
So,
It's what's the Einstein fish quote?
um,
If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, the fish will
yes.
spend its whole life believing it's stupid.
Mhm.
I mean,
And luckily,
sums it up.
the people who did this don't have to listen to us judge them.
No, and I don't even think that we're judging it. I said we're
Well, yeah, we're not,
appreciating
but
them. But
but
it's
there are
like,
people who are like, they couldn't possibly have made this. It had to have been
yeah, it's
aliens.
an insult.
Yeah, I think it is an insult to humanity in general. It's an insult to Peru. It's an insult to, like,
Yeah. It's like, okay, imagine 300 years from now. They're looking back on how we handled the pandemic or how we did our medical procedures or anything like that. To people 500,000 years in the future, we are going to seem primitive.
mhm,
Are you stupid?
yeah.
Absolutely not.
I
We
just
are
got
smart for our time.
I just got CPR certified, and CPR, like, sometimes you break ribs,
Yep.
but it will very
The
often
life
save
saving,
people's
yeah.
lives. Someday in the future, I mean, we've gotten to the point now where AEDs,
Hmm.
which defibrillators,
Yeah.
um, they can tell you when there's a shockable rhythm and when there isn't.
Hmm.
They can tell you,
Oh, they're
all
incredibly
kinds of things
intelligent.
like that. In 50 more years, are we even going to be doing CPR? I
Yeah.
mean, in 50 years, probably. In
Right.
100 years, are we going to be doing compressions?
Hmm.
And when we are not doing compressions anymore, are we going to look back and say, oh, they bounced on their chests and, like, broke their ribs and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Are we going to look back and say, why would they drill holes in people's heads? Which we do now to relieve pressure
On the
building up.
brain.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
We are ever learning. We are ever evolving. There is no way.
cancer.
Yeah.
When we
Fucking
find
cancer.
actual, and I'm not saying radiation isn't a good treatment for cancer, but when you look at what it does to the human body, it is
Yes.
not ideal.
No.
In
And a lot of
1,000
people
years,
do die, their cancer is cured, but the radiation then kills them. I actually know of several people personally who have died as a result of radiation therapy after it cured their cancer.
yeah. I mean, I've known of plenty of people who have gone through chemo and it destroyed their bodies so much that when their cancer came back, they decided they just couldn't,
Mhm.
you know?
Oh, absolutely.
So in this will probably be close to 1,000 years, frankly, when we have discovered something besides radiation, are we going to look back on that and say we were poisoning each other to try and cure an
Yeah.
illness?
Yeah. I mean, there's no telling where the future is going to take us, and so we have to remember that when we look back and say, and that's a I'm gonna relate this to generational talk because it drives me
Oh, yeah.
insane. Because generational talk, well, kids these days and da 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 da, and I'm like, y'all, we were the same. It's just
Yeah.
slightly different. Smoking used to be considered good for you.
Yeah, so did radiation. I'm trying to remember radium.
Radium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I need to do an episode on that because that's very interesting.
Yeah. But like literally tobacco used to be considered good for you
Mhm.
and now here we are. And that's why it drives me crazy seeing people using jewels
Oh,
because it's like
I've had coworkers who are like, "Oh, but I don't. It's not. It's not a cigarette. It doesn't have as much
nicotine.
nicotine." But I'm like, if
There's
you're
still
going out to smoke for 5 minutes a day, or for 5 minutes, like 15 times a day, how much would you have been doing if you were smoking a cigarette? Like, would it have been as
Mhm.
much? Like,
Well, shit, and there's people I know that vape at their desk.
yeah. And there, oh, okay, we can't we can't talk about vaping. I have things. I had a coworker at one of my retail places who would, I didn't know this
Mm,
because he quit pretty soon after I got here, but apparently he would, or at there,
got there.
apparently he would sneak his head out the back door, suck in, breathe out as he was coming back in, and he would get in trouble for it and try to sneak it in, but you can smell it.
Mhm.
Like, bruh.
It's not subtle.
People, and again, my dad has, I've never mentioned this on the podcast. My dad has very bad asthma. Cigarette smoke is a massive, massive
Mhm.
thing for him. Walking through a cloud of vape dust is not any better, or
Yeah.
it's not a whole lot better.
Yeah.
But people think that that is more excusable.
Well, and secondhand smoke is still a thing when it comes to vapes.
We can't talk about this. Is
Well,
no.
Well, so it's funny that you say that because I actually used to have a really big problem with this as a kid too, where people and I know whatever, is that a ton of people can relate to this, but especially in colder climates.
Mm,
For those who do not live in colder climates, is the most annoying thing. In the winter, shit like that sticks around because it doesn't go up. It just
yes.
stays. So, for example, when it's cold outside, people don't go as far away from the entrance of a store
Mm-hmm.
to smoke. So there's a cloud of cigarette smoke right near the start of the store, and I would open up a store entrance,
Yeah.
whatever.
You've done it. Got it in 3.
To the entrance of a store, and there's just cloud of smoke, and I always just get looks because I'd literally be hacking up a lung because my body couldn't take it. And I don't even have asthma. I was just super sensitive to cigarette
Yeah.
smoke. I don't know. I couldn't deal with
Yeah.
it. And so I'd be coughing up a fit and people thought I was people thought I was exaggerating. And
We
just to
used
be
to,
an
yeah.
ass.
We
And I'm
used
like,
to,
no.
when I was at retail place,
Number 3?
yeah, number 3. Yeah, number 3. Okay.
Oh, I guess. I wasn't sure.
Yeah. I had to count because I was like, "What was my first job? Not retail." Okay. So people would try and smoke or vape right outside the door. It was almost always vaping that we
Mhm.
had to poke our heads outside and be like, "You can't.
Well, and
You
that was
gotta
also a
move."
younger crowd too.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, a lot of them were middle aged, but either way,
Always.
I mean, yeah. Listen,
Opinions.
I've worked at too many retail places. Never again.
Same. Um,
But basically, I think that is my opinion that, like, oh, also, like, building planes. At what point?
oh my god, right?
Yeah. Where?
Fucking, we sent a man to the moon in 1969,
Yeah.
less than 100 years after the first successful flight of an airplane, which I think we've mentioned this before. But I'm sorry, the advancements that we have made within
Yeah.
the past 100 years alone is staggering.
Mm-hmm. I mean, looking back at 1922, that seems like way longer than a century ago, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It feels well over, and I mean, God, it really wasn't.
Yeah. But even looking back at, like, the
1800s.
GPS didn't exist in 1970, you know?
Mhm.
So,
I mean, and I could do an entire 4-episode series on technological advancements.
we're going to touch on it in episode 10 too.
Oh, are
Yeah.
we?
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
Sweet. Don't forget to check out our Instagram and TikTok for more information, and in this case, pictures of the petroglyphs. Specifically, I know I'll be sharing the ones about the monkey, the spider, and the bird, which I know it says somewhere that it looks like a condor, but you're saying it looks like a heron.
it's called the heron.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for listening to today's episode of A Wild Mystery Podcast Appears. This has been the review of the Nazca Lines.
We hope you join us next week and check out our social media to see notes or pictures from today's episode. Stay safe.